Hello, good morning, my dears. Here is Irini Hara, and today I received a big inspiration. Some of you might say it's a download. I call it inspiration because when I really deeply connected with something, with the energies around, with the field, I receive ideas, I receive insights, I receive images, and so on. And we are still very much under the influence of the full moon from the 16th of February, a full moon in Leo that invites us to shine even from our shadows, to dig something there, a treasure that is hidden, and bring it to light and show ourselves in our most powerful and beautiful version. But today I want to speak to you about something that has been on my mind for quite a while, because in my interactions with several people, I deal a lot with women through my work with women, but also with men sometimes. I noticed some kind of confusion about several terms and several realities that these terms, these words represent, especially if we connect and relate with the spirituality. Spirituality in a very broad sense. I'm not speaking about religion or religious practice, but rather about what we think is spirituality and how we have to, or we would like to live it, how to make for our own life a spiritual practice. And so these three words that came to me and haunted me for a while, and then today I want to share with you my thoughts about it, are karma, trauma, and healing. And I want to bring you a different perspective, my own perspective, that is also a perspective that comes from all the readings, the experiences, the interactions I have with people in this spirituality realm. It's a personal perspective about what these words actually can mean, how they relate one to each other, and what actually can bring them, if we want to practice them or to bring them into, integrate them into our own reality. And so I will start with karma. Karma is a concept that comes from Vedic and Indian and Asian spirituality. Is very old. And nowadays this concept and all the practices that were created around this concept of karma and dharma, because it's something related with past lives for those who believe in this, and this life and future lives, was borrowed also by the Western spirituality, by the so-called New Age spirituality. Because of course, believing in past lives and in karma and dharma would somehow contradict, for example, the spiritual dogma we have in Christianity, or even in other religions that are monotheistic. So karma, why people believe in karma, why karma is important for this life we live on, and what do I think is a relationship between karma and trauma? Because these two words, karma and trauma, are quite similar, but they are, in my opinion, really the opposite. But there are many people practicing healing and therapies, alternative therapies nowadays, that actually are able to bring them together and to speak even about karmic constellations and karmic inheritance, or karmic traumas, because you carry, according to these opinions, you carry karma from past lives if you already lived many lifetimes as an old soul. And I was even told, because I also went through these practices, I like to experience, I like to understand more about myself. And sometimes I go into this alternative directions of or paths of thinking and practicing to dig, to understand, to explore. And I was told that actually I lived many lifetimes, maybe even 10, and that I'm very old soul. And who knows, maybe this is my last life. So I have to make the best and most of it. Karma, for me, is a shortcut because I find it very easy and convenient, but not so much for the positive side of it, to think that we have been punished in this life to suffer, to go through difficult situations and relationships, to lose dear people, or to suffer persecution or abuse and so on, because we abused our power or we did something wrong in other lives, in previous lives. And so the only way to pay for that debt that we carried from those lives is to come here in this life and to connect with those memories and start to heal them by doing the opposite what we've done in those lives. So doing the good, trying to mend situations and relationships, going through very tough healing processes after a very difficult disease, and so on. But still, yeah, this could be an interesting explanation for why everything happens in this life. And sometimes we feel we are burdened, that we have to carry all this pain, all this suffering inside, that it is a struggle. Sometimes for many years, we get in situations of very low energy and burnout, in chronic health care situations where we actually we need to reinvent ourselves to be able to bring healing and to cure ourselves, to get better, to get stronger. It is a shortcut because what I see in many people is that it's much more comfortable for them to think or imagine, because we don't have any proof that past lives exist actually. It's much more comfortable to imagine that, yes, we lived in that past life and now we are punished, so we just have to accept this process. Instead of actually looking inside of us and trying to understand, to connect, and then to embrace, to accept, and to heal the traumas we carry from this lifetime. Because these traumas, is true, they also have a baggage that we inherit, but it's not from past lives, it's from past generations. And these past generations also carry their own baggage from their own past generations. And if we can go back in time to all these ancestral lines that we have behind, like in a very big tree with many ramifications, with many branches, we'll understand that there is a lot of trauma that comes from centuries ago. And then somehow we carry in our subconscious, and then we carry in the collective, because there is so much collective trauma and so much conditioning because of this trauma in the days and times we live in. So for me, as someone who worked intensively on herself and who now starts to understand my own traumas, my own issues, my own patterns, my own survival mechanisms, I don't feel the necessity, and I don't even recommend to other people to go and dig in past lives that we don't even know what happened or if really happened anything. And instead of doing this, come back to this life, because there is so much trauma that you are not aware you are carrying inside and you didn't solve yet. until you will not solve it, you will not see it, you will not understand it, you will not feel it, and then start the healing process and integrate, you will not be able to get out of this conditioning. You will probably continue in a self-pity, miserable situation, or in an unfulfilling relationship. We will continue carrying a lot of anger, sorrow. You can even get to extreme case of thinking that life is useless. I take my own life, I don't need it. It's too painful. And unfortunately, the society and the civilization we live on now today promotes through its own survival mechanisms that are collective survival mechanisms, these traumas, this traumatizing context. It's enough to see what has happened in these last 2 years with the pandemics and everything. And it's curious to see for someone who actually studies alternative therapies and trauma therapies and who soon will also be a therapist, it's very difficult to see that actually authorities and institutions don't want to handle this concept of trauma, and that so many measures actually create a traumatizing environment and conditions for propagating more trauma. So what is trauma? Well, many people fear this word, and other people, they might be interested and curious to know, and when I started the work on it, then sometimes they withdraw, because it's very important work to do on ourselves if we really want to progress and to heal. But on the same time, it can create a lot of waves, a lot of ups and downs in our energy until the integration process is finished. And for some people, it's overwhelming emotionally, physically, and sometimes even spiritually, because at a certain point, when you start to heal and understand you on a very, very deep level, the whole concept you had about yourself, about your relationship with the world, and about your spiritual path can change in a drastic way. Actually, the fact that I'm speaking today about karma, trauma, and healing in a completely different perspective than the, let's say, the mostly accepted one, it's a fact that I have changed a lot by doing this work on my own traumas. And I was trying somehow lately in my interactions with people and discussing with people about it to inform them. And some people are receptive to understand more about trauma and trauma therapy, but other people, because they were conditioned to think like that, or because they're skeptical, or because they think that this is all new age thing, which is not. Few people just told me, but I don't remember to have really important traumas, or I don't think actually that I'm traumatized. And this is very far from the truth. Why? Because trauma, that means a split that happens both inside your body and in your psyche due to a traumatic event. And this traumatic event can be from an accident, a car accident, or an injury while you're doing sports or walking or running or whatsoever. It can be a very difficult divorce, or a very difficult birth process, or even in the stage of the conception. Sometimes events happen and we don't have this memory of them. And all these events create a split that, according to Franz Rupert theory, one of the, let's say, the major figures in trauma therapy field nowadays, creates different fragments. And one of these fragments is a survival strategy, because in the moment of the traumatic event, the energy is released to create this split and fragments, and we still keep for ourselves a healthy part of us, a healthy identity. But another part becomes a survival mechanism. as the pain, the shock is so big. So in order to survive, we need to create it, to advance in life. And for many years, we keep it going and going and going. And then, of course, there is the traumatized part that is in suffering. And in many cases, this traumatized part can develop into disease, into chronic illnesses, into symptoms and health conditions that are not very favorable for a normal living, for a happy living. And at the psychological level, in many cases, these splits are also inducing identifications with many people that we have around. And the first and very strong identification each of us can have is with our mother, because we stay in the womb of our mother, where we are also conceived from the fecundation of the ovule with the spermatozoa. We stay for almost 9 months or less. And sometimes this womb space, this dark space that is supposed to be welcoming us, is not the best environment. And there are many causes for this to happen, because either the mother is sick, either she is worried, or she suffers abuse, or for any other reasons where we can feel as a fetus in her womb that we are not welcome, or that even the right to live is taken for us. And then, of course, we get through the birth channel, and sometimes the delivery is difficult. The cord might try to strangle us, or if we are from twin or triple gametes, we have to divide the space, so the birth will be also difficult. Sometimes we survive other fetuses that our mother carries, or in modern times, the mother gets medication, or she is even cut, her belly is cut into a C-section to take us out. And all these events, they have the potential to be harmful and traumatizing events. And of course, we don't remember them, but the body keeps the clues. The body remembers for our whole life. And at a certain point, after many years, it starts to show us that something is not okay, and we have to pay more attention to this and to understand it. And so the mother is the first figure to whom we relate, and is the one who is supposed to take care of us, at least in the first years of life. If the mother is absent emotionally or physically, or if mother dies, or we are taken and given into adoption, this is again a source of trauma. And we don't remember. We can be told this happened. Body will remember. And then, of course, we start to grow. We go through our puberty and then into adulthood. And then we become more aware of what is happening with us. But if all these traumatizing events already happened since the conception, through the gestation period, through the birth, and then the first years of life, when we don't have this memory of what happened, and they kept accumulating, then we already developed an identity and love trauma. And on this, according to the theory of Franz Rupert that speaks of a biography of traumas, other trauma can develop. And there are other two levels beyond the identity and love trauma that he speaks about. And the next one is sexual trauma. That is why many children who have early childhood trauma, adverse experience in the early childhood development, they can experience sexual abuse also as a children, not as adults. And then those people who are highly traumatized, who suffered a lot of traumas, and they also got re-traumatized in time while developing as human beings, some of them, they cannot get out of this cycle, of this difficult cycles of traumas. And if they were severely abused as children, and further on also as adults, they will become abuser, perpetrators on their own, towards their own family, their own children, but also towards society. And this actually explains all this trauma survival mechanism we see nowadays in the society, even on the top levels of the society and of institutions. Because power struggle, the desire to control the others, the desire to manipulate, it's simply a trauma survival mechanism. And as we stood in the womb of the mother for 9 months, almost, or less, we have to remember that as an egg, as a primordial idea of conception of a new being, while we were in the womb of the mother, we actually were also in the womb of our grandmother, her mother, and in the womb of our great-great-grandmother. It's like that Matryoshka doll, a womb inside a womb, inside a womb, inside a womb. And those dolls are the portrait of a mother lineage or matrilineage. And this is how trauma propagates through the mother line, through the mitochondrial genetic inheritance. There are many things to say about it, and I'm not going to stop here today. The only thing I want to say, pay attention that intergenerational trauma is not karmic trauma. It's something else. It's the past, it's true. Both karma and intergenerational trauma speak about the past. But the approach to understand it and actually the way to relate to it is completely different. And someone could say, we cannot escape from any of them. What I say, first, deal with your own traumas from this life and from past generations. And then you'll understand that speaking about past lives and healing those traumas is not so important. Because when you heal yourself, you can heal those from behind. And it's almost like past lives loses the importance and relevance, because it's this life that matters. It's in this life that you want to be happy and healthy. So deal with what happened to you, even if you don't remember consciously. Your subconscious has everything stored there and in your body. Deal with this now. If you really want to thrive in your life, if you really want to be yourself, to gain your own identity and to get out of this all identifications that you have with the people who had an impact in your life. Because everything happens because of love. You as a child, as a newborn, you just know the language of love. The first words you hear, the first voices you hear, and the first people you see are those people who are supposed to take care of you, to nurture you, and to love you. So you have unconditional love for them. But sometimes, and actually in many cases, those people, mama, papa, siblings, or other people around in the family, don't have this unconditional love for you. So it's an imbalance. And how you bring balance to this situation? Well, by understanding who you are and relating to yourself in an authentic way without trying to escape into projections about past lives and karmic baggage and karmic relationships and so on. Understand your trauma bonds, understand your trauma biography, connect with it on a deep level, accept, embrace, and release the past. And then into integration process, you will see that healing happens. And it's here that I introduce this word, healing. I had a very interesting discussion with a lady 1 week ago. I actually met her by chance. She was together with a friend of mine, and we decided to go together also to eat a pizza, and we were with our kids and so on. And she was complaining about a health condition that she had for more than 10 years, and that she tried everything, a lot of healing and modalities and breath work and even this Wim Hof method to dive into the iced water in winter time, which I actually consider a very extreme sport, and so on. And still she couldn't find a solution. And I asked her a very simple question. I asked her, did you do trauma therapy? Did you try to actually connect with the very deep trauma that probably you carry inside because you are in a situation of health, precarious health, and you don't find a solution? You have symptoms, you have a low energy or whatsoever is what's happening with her. And she said, yes, I tried everything, a lot of healing modalities, and I went into the woods and I breathed and I connected and I could understand my traumas. And I said, it's not about just understanding, it's about feeling. And she said, yes, I connected my intellect, my mind with my heart, and I saw things and I accepted and I understood them. And then I asked again, but did you feel them? And she was a little bit puzzled. And then I asked her, because she's a woman and I have experience with women, I asked her, but what about your connection between your womb and your heart? Because yes, I acknowledge there should be a connection between our mind and heart. They should go hand in hand, not separately. But there is another part of the body that you didn't consider that actually is your power engine, is your sexual vital force center. Is from that place that you create, you give birth. And she somehow looked strangely to me and she didn't give an answer. But I gave an answer to her and I said, you could have a clue if you start to pay more attention to this channel and you open it between your heart and womb. Because might be that you still have a blockage there that prevents you to actually feel, not only to understand your traumas. Because from my own experience, and I'm not speaking about my own personal healing path and all the healing modalities I've tried from many different areas, but also from the experience I got in working with other women and with people in general, is that you cannot access and heal your traumas on a deep level just by understanding and acknowledging them. You have to feel it. And this feeling sometimes resurface with a lot of pain, and it can be overwhelming. But it's just temporary, because this healing is an integration process of the work you do with your own traumas to access them, to understand them, to release them. And what I noticed is that this release, that is an energetic release, is not only a mental, a thought release or a bodily sensation, it's really energetically happening, can have the same intensity and sometimes even more than actually the release that happened when the split at the moment of the traumatic event happened. And that's why many people, when they start to work with trauma, they get overwhelmed in the intensity of this feeling what happened, feeling the sadness, feeling the anger, feeling the sorrow, feeling the grief. And for a short while, you carry and you experience all these feelings again, because this is the real healing. When you try to find excuses and go outside the body, not wanting to feel those, is when actually you disconnect and you're just repeating an old pattern of your trauma survival mechanism. You know that sequence: fight, flight, and freeze. These are the three stages that our body expresses when a traumatic event happens. And what actually I noticed in the spirituality world with people who say that they practice a lot of healing modalities on themselves or with others, is that there is a whole tendency of disconnecting from what actually it is present inside us in the moment that we do this reintegration process. We disconnect because it's too much to stay in the body. And then we say, okay, I go out and I will give this healing to another person, and I will feel better because in this way, I validate myself that I healed myself and I can heal someone else. And this is very wrong. Wrong because first, you are speaking from a disconnection place. You don't stay with your own feelings and state or inner state to really do the work. You go outside. You try to find instant gratification or just pretend that you are helping others, where actually you recognize that you give up on yourself and you are not able to help yourself first. And second, no one heals anyone. Each of us as human beings, we have been given a body, a mind, a heart, and a womb or hara for men to be able to connect all of them in one channel. That means the real connection in the body and with our own spirit. And to heal ourselves, because we have all the tools, all the knowledge. Our body knows already. Otherwise, you will probably not even be doing the healing work you need to do. But don't do healing work outside of yourself, outside of your own understanding and feeling this body connection. Because that is not healing. It's just another survival mechanism. So I really want that you start to understand this, because I came to tell you all this about karma, trauma, and healing to make you question the way you see nowadays these realities and what they represent for you. Because there are many people who invented many healing modalities and many spiritual practices, but many of them are only just promoting disconnection and a little bit of also, yeah, pardon me for saying this, but arrogance, because no one heals nobody. We just can heal ourselves. But first, we need to know ourselves, to understand what happened to us, to understand our history, our past, our lineage, our traumas, to connect, embrace, and accept what happened as it happened, and then to work towards integrating all this trauma work, all these feelings in a conscious way, but always in the body, not outside of it. Because this is being mindful about who we are. This is how we start to build up boundaries, healthy one, with the world, with the people in our life. This is how we break a cycle of suffering and pain and disconnection, because trauma is all about disconnection. Disconnection. So I really hope that my intervention of today will bring you questions and will bring you to a point to question yourself, to look to yourself, to the way you are living your life and how much you know yourself, and to start working on yourself on a deep, deep level, because I can assure you it compensates. I wouldn't be here to say this to you from a very open heart and with all the power and love I have if I wouldn't have done this work. And it's not yet finished, because when you start, it's a Pandora box. You never know what it gets out. But once you start, you know you will never get back to that place of suffering and struggle and not knowing and not understanding. And this is what I wish for you, every of you, each of you. Don't give up at the first stumble or difficulty. Healing traumas is not an easy job. It's for all of us, but not all of us want to handle. Not all of us have the courage to start this process or the processes that will follow. But it brings rewards. It makes you happier and more complete, and for sure more connected with your heart, with your third eye, with your mind, with your body, with your womb, of course, with the earth, with everything that is around, with the universe. All the dimensions that you search for are inside of you. You have to remember this. Blessed be your day. Blessed be your heart. Bye-bye.